There we go.
The only way
Everybody,
that makes sense.
Oh my God.
Is if
Who's
Jennifer
the first
McCabe
person to join us?
already
This is
knew
incredible.
that Brian and Nicole were just fine.
I've been watching Alan Jackson.
That's the only reasonable explanation.
All morning.
And the only way she would know that they were fine is if she knew what happened.
Oh my God.
But Michael Proctor never explored this incredibly suspicious behavior. Don't you have questions? This would give anyone reasonable doubt.
Okay.
Here's the one thing I trust AI to do more than humans. And ironically,
this is unbelievable. I got to say,
so
this
much
guy,
time
Alan Jackson, I got up this morning, started watching the closing. This guy is unbelievable.
We introduced a new tool called Safe Collab, which is an AI brand safety tool. It can look through years worth of content, text, audio, visual, everything, and in minutes catch anything that might be sensitive and elevate it in a dashboard to a brand manager or an agency to review. And the coolest thing is you can select influencers and creators for it to monitor moving forward. We saw our customers spending so much time manually vetting creators, 4 to 6 hours per creator. Honestly, they'd spend so much time that it prevented them from doing the actual work. With Safe Collab, you can truly have peace of mind knowing that this will catch anything that you might have missed. You can offload the tedious manual work and feel good knowing that you've covered all your bases.
Little cropped beard. Yeah. What's up with the little guys? They don't date women, but they do have beards. All right. You can't, by the way.
Looking for high quality meat and seafood that fits with your lifestyle.
This is a super convenient way to get high quality meat and seafood delivered right to your door. They have tons of options to choose from, like 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more. And they're all delicious. You can build your own box by choosing all your favorite cuts, and I love looking through the recipes that they have on their website for inspiration. I recently made these honey lemon pork chops, and they came out so good. Skip the hassle of the grocery store by heading to butcherbox.com.
It's just incredible. Every single bit of his closing.
You saw the skulking through the hallways with his hood up, moving bags between cars, and of course, that late night mysterious phone call on his cell phone, a phone that you don't have and that you'll never see. All of that, and Michael Proctor never gave him a second look. All of that, and the Commonwealth, who's supposed to be after the truth, didn't call him to the stand. If you have any unanswered questions about Brian Higgins, that's reasonable doubt. The police didn't interview Brian Higgins on January 29th, 2022, but he was at the police station, as we've just seen. You heard evidence that Higgins and Chief of Police Kenny Berkowitz, also good friends, were in the Sallyport together with the SUV for a, quote, wildly long time. Kelly Dever, another Boston cop, told you that. She also told law enforcement agents that she found it, quote, weird that Higgins could have access to that very sensitive evidence, the SUV. Folks, there is never a situation in which a witness, a potential suspect even, should be given access to the evidence in a case. But that's exactly what happened here. Higgins was given unfettered access to that SUV and its taillight nearly immediately, according to Kelly Devers' statement to law enforcement.
How about the 42 minutes that
And it was at that exact time, the exact moments that Higgins would be in that Sallyport, that the 42 minutes of the Sallyport video is just missing. It's just gone, vanished. Well, that's convenient. Mm-hmm. Now put in context the condition of that taillight when it was actually seized in Dighton. It was cracked, but not completely damaged. I ask you to compare and contrast Officer Kelly Dever, her attitude, her demeanor. That's all for you to judge. Her attitude, her demeanor, her truthfulness, her motives from the witness stand. Compare and contrast that to Sergeant Nick Barrows. Who's more believable? Officer Barrows is unattached to any of the players in this grand play directed by Michael Proctor. He's truly independent. And what did he tell you? Was the taillight, he was asked, was the taillight in this condition when Michael Proctor picked up that SUV at 412? His answer? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was cracked. but not completely damaged, not smashed out like that.
Yeah.
So how did the taillight get cracked? How did it end up in the condition where it was cracked
With a hammer.
as Officer Barrow saw it, but not completely damaged? Well, you don't have to guess.
That big lug Higgins with a hammer.
Video. Just watch.
Yeah, there you go. Boom! You see the car
That's
move.
how it got cracked. And Judson Welcher's own recreation confirms it.
How much did Welcher
the
get paid?
context.
500 grand?
That's from the Commonwealth's expert. And that further is confirmed by the fact that there were no taillight pieces found in any of the initial searches conducted at the scene. 2 searches, 50-foot area searched. Not a single fragment was found until after Michael Proctor had access to and control of that SUV and its taillight. What does that say about the character and quality of this case? It's revealing what happened here at trial. One of the most dramatic moments probably of the trial, Kelly Dever. How can you trust this investigation when you saw how far a police officer will go? You had a front row seat to the power of police manipulation and police corruption, a front row seat. Kelly Dever was interviewed by a separate law enforcement agency, not a friendly department, not Boston Police Department, not Michael Proctor's MSP, a different independent agency. She told those law enforcement agents in a formal interview that she saw Brian Higgins and Chief Kenneth Berkowitz alone in the Sallyport with the SUV. She was detailed, she was clear, she was unequivocal, she remembered the specifics, she recalled how it made her feel, quote, weird. She recalled how long Higgins spent, a quote, wildly long time, as she described. These are all incredible details to tell law enforcement. She couldn't have been clearer, she couldn't have been more specific. But then she's put on a witness list and she's subpoenaed by the defense. Oh boy. Then this rookie cop was called up to the police commissioner's office, the same commissioner that was the boss of Brian Albert. They have a meeting, a private meeting, and he says, wink, wink, nod, nod, we support you, Officer Dever. What else was said in that meeting? What else is reasonable to believe was said in that meeting? She claimed she couldn't remember. She claimed not to remember if he instructed her to do the right thing. But the commissioner of the Boston Police Department certainly said something to this rookie cop. And all of a sudden, that detailed, unambiguous, unequivocal statement to law enforcement became, what did she say? A false memory. Not, I didn't say it. She admitted she said it. She admitted she detailed the entire story. She just said, it's a false memory. What? So she's called to the commissioner's office to make sure that she would do the right thing. That's why she was called. And now we know what that means. In her words, my entire career depends on what I say here on the stand. I'll quote that again. Quote, my entire career depends on what I say here on the stand. You bet it does. That's how it works. And that's how we got here. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, can you trust the Commonwealth's case? Can you trust their witnesses? Can you trust their evidence? And here are a few of the highlights. A video that was played in a courtroom and sold as accurate. Turns out it was completely inverted, flipped backward, completely false. The test that formed the basis of their entire theory of the case. Watch closely as Dr. Welcher stands as a surrogate.
Nice guns, Welcher. Look at him. And while I'm at it, if you don't mind, I might just quickly throw you a little try right there. I tried to get by, but I got trapped.
Is that a righteous test? Or is that a manipulation? Dr. Welcher tried to deceive and fool you by leaning into the car, manipulating the results of his own test. When the truth was revealed by Dr. Rentschler, the Commonwealth spent the next hour cross-examining it about how that test was meaningless. It actually didn't mean anything. Well, that's convenient now that we realize that it was a manipulated test and it actually does mean nothing.
There's a girl in the back.
It didn't represent the theory of the Commonwealth's case. That's what was suggested. That test does not represent the theory of the Commonwealth's case. Really? Then why was Dr. Welcher playing dress up in John O'Keefe's clothes, or identical clothes to John O'Keefe, when he was holding a glass? Why was he holding the glass right behind the vehicle? And why was he standing with his right arm oriented to the right rear taillight if he wasn't trying to recreate the circumstance that is the Commonwealth's entire theory? The Commonwealth stood up here with a straight face and told you they weren't trying to suggest that that's how John was hit by the car. Of course they were trying to suggest that's their theory of the case. They only abandoned it 2 days ago when it was revealed by our experts that it's physically impossible. That silent witness, that science, that physics has become very pesky to the Commonwealth because there was no collision. Dr. Welcher also told you under oath that there were no x-rays taken of John's arm. He tried to deceive you into believing that John's arm might have been broken. I don't know. I didn't see any x-rays, so I can't tell you what the damage was inside the arm. Really? The Commonwealth has had those x-rays in their possession for 3 years. And again, it took the defense to bring out the truth. The x-rays do not fit the Commonwealth's theory, so you weren't shown. And Dr. Welcher wasn't going to admit it.
Yeah.
And my goodness.
Should be some fractures there. If you smash an arm, if it's going to break taillight like that,
was a moment.
Should smash the arm.
Mr. Brennan stood here in front of you and dramatically held up John's sweatshirt. Not just to the witness, but to you. And asked Dr. Wolf about it multiple times. Specifically, while it was in that plexiglass, asked Dr. Wolf about the multiple holes in the back of the sweatshirt. He interrupted Dr. Wolf, and Dr. Wolf started to look at the sweatshirt and say, well, and he said, how about here? Here's a hole, here's a hole, here's a hole, here's a hole, dramatically tapping on that plexiglass. It was clear what the suggestion was, that the holes in the back of John's sweatshirt were from January 29th. That's the impression that was expected to be left with you. That's the impression that he wanted to leave with you. And that's false. The truth is, the Commonwealth created those holes. They aren't holes from road rash. They weren't made on January 29th. Those are cuttings from the Commonwealth's own crime lab, folks. That's what those holes are.
Wow.
And even with 3 prosecutors, all 3 of them, sitting right there in the room at the time, it had to be the defense,
criminal defense attorney in Boston,
to bring out.
I said, Joe, he's demolishing this closing.
If we hadn't done that,
just wait.
What impression,
Joe, I'm waiting for you to come in after the closing.
Been left with?
This is a crushing.
That's more than negligence.
Speaking of Dr. Wolf,
dangerous.
Scott Wolf with a beard to play Alan Jackson in the Karen Reed movie.
I'm going to guess that Mr. Brennan's not going to say much about this, about the fraud that was attempted on you. And if he doesn't, that speaks louder than any concocted excuse that the Commonwealth might come up with. It's shameful. It's shameful. We are after the truth in this courtroom. You're entitled to it. Demand it.
Oh, he's coming to an end, isn't he?
Why would the Commonwealth stoop to a stunt like that? It's desperation. They know what you now know, what their experts know. There was no collision. So now we've reached the final moments of the trial, and you've seen the facts and you've seen the evidence, and we've just talked about dozens and dozens and dozens of facts that are reasonable doubt. Each one of them are reasonable doubts. These facts, these note cards that you're looking at, piled high, one on top of another, literally stacks and stacks of them covering the table. As you mentally sift through those cards, realize that every one of them is a massive hole in the Commonwealth's case. Every single one of the note cards represents a hole in the Commonwealth's case. If you're holding mentally even one of those cards, you're holding reasonable doubt, folks. You're holding a not guilty verdict. Reasonable doubt is not a sliding scale. It's a wall. If the Commonwealth cannot get over every one of these dozens of walls, you have to acquit Karen Read. The truth is, Karen Read is not guilty. Not because of technicalities, but because the facts, the law, the science, the physics, the data, they all say so. They demand it. The Commonwealth does not have a theory about how John was hit by the car. They haven't even shown you that it's possible that he was hit by a car. And the reason they haven't is because it's not possible that he was hit by a car. There was no collision. Your job is not to do their job, their burden entirely. It's theirs. They have to prove this case and their theory beyond all reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And not only do they not have a theory, they can't prove one that doesn't exist. All you need to know is that the Commonwealth failed. They failed to provide you with a truthful representation. They failed to prove the essence of their case, that John was even hit by a car to begin with. They failed to prove any intent on the part of Karen Read because she has none. They failed to investigate the actual suspects in this case. They failed to present the lead investigator to you. They failed to justify the perjured testimony that you heard discussed in this case. They failed to hold accountable an officer who came in here and lied to you and claimed false memories so she could do the right thing to cover for a fellow cop or cops. They failed to maintain a fair and unbiased and honest investigation. They failed to present you with the truth. And this is what you get. An investigation that's riddled with errors and omissions and a rush to judgment and conflicted and corrupted from the start. Every part of it. That is the literal definition of reasonable doubt. How can they ask you to be morally certain based on this evidence? It's a tragedy. When the government fails so completely, so catastrophically, when there are dozens and dozens of points of reasonable doubt on the table, your duty, your oath is clear. Your sworn obligation under the law is to acquit Karen Read, not just because you can, because you must. Justice demands it. Do not let the Commonwealth get away with this. Don't let them get away with this. Do not endorse and sanction an investigation that is broken and corrupted top to bottom. But just as importantly, do not let Michael Proctor get away with it. And make no mistake about it, folks. If you convict Karen Read of anything, if you convict her of anything, science, the physics, the data, they lose. But tragically, Michael Proctor wins. Remember his texts. Something stinks. Yeah, but serious charges will be brought on the girl. She's fucked. Could you ever say to yourself, this?
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up your store on a single integrated platform. Add products, showcase them dynamically, and seamlessly track your inventory. Accept multiple secure payments, and design your storefront down to the very last detail. Get all the tools you need. Drive more sales with customizable gift cards and flexible product subscriptions. Retain customers with a point-based loyalty program, email automations, and reach millions with sales channel integrations. Complete your setup with a personalized analytics dashboard. Make smart business decisions and shape the next phase of your business. Build, manage, and grow from one place. Go to Wix and launch your online business today.
He's described as a good man, kind, generous, thoughtful. He was a Boston police officer. He worked to help the community.
Okay, Hank.
Everything you've heard about this man, he was a good man. He helped people. When his niece and nephew had nobody, he took them in. He took them in.
Oh, Hank, you better have something good today.
John O'Keefe seemed to be the type of person who would help anybody at any time. And on January 29th, 2022, John O'Keefe needed some help. He needed help from somebody else. You see, John O'Keefe had just been hit by Karen Reed in front of 34 Fairview Road, and he lay on the ground dying, and he needed help. Someone to reach out a hand, someone to knock on a door, someone to make a phone call to 911, even anonymously. Not take responsibility, just to help. And there was only one person in this entire planet who could help him that morning, to give him a chance. Maybe it was a 33% chance if he met the Isaac Wolf of the world, but to give him a chance. And that one person who could help him that morning was this defendant right here, Karen Reed. And she made a decision. In her Lexus with the shattered taillight, debris field all over the front yard, and John O'Keefe lying helpless like a child on the front yard, she made a choice. She didn't call 911. She didn't run to his aid. She didn't knock on a door. She made a decision about herself. In her Lexus, she drove away. She was drunk. She hit him, and she left him to die. She was drunk. She hit him, and she left him to die. Before I go through and detail the evidence, let's talk a little bit about the evidence as a whole. She was drunk. She was drinking that night. She was drinking McCarthy's with John. She was drinking at the waterfall. Her blood was taken with samples of the retrograde analysis, almost 2 to 3 times the legal limit. She was drunk. She hit him. The timeline in this case is beyond dispute. You can accuse, assault, characterize, malign, twist. The timeline doesn't change. It is data. Data is data. The black box, the forensics from the SD card, we know exactly step by step where they were. We know in that window, she hits him because he never moves again. His healthcare data, the temperature on the battery of the cell phone, the physical evidence, the debris field, the DNA, the hair. And then she left him to die. He had a basal skull fracture, counter coup. You heard all about it when the back of your head hits the ground and the brain comes forward. Dr. Wolf told us the reason why they have level 1 trauma centers around the country is because people can survive this injury if they get help. That's why they have this care. That's why they have these hospitals. But you gotta get help. You gotta get help. And if you don't, you develop symptoms, ecchymosis, raccoon eyes, your brain swells, and you die. She was drunk. And that night was a recipe for disaster. But before we get to the drinking, In some ways, the fate of this night was sealed well before that night, because John O'Keefe and Karen Reed were in a toxic relationship. This relationship was crumbling. We hear lovey-dovey, and it was crumbling, and we know it. And we know it because a month before, his niece Kaylee talks about when they went to Aruba. It should have been a wonderful event. It was discord. It was fighting. It was aggravation. And when they got back, the discontent was palpable. Miss Reed reaches out to Brian Higgins, text messaging. John O'Keefe, the relationship is crumbling. And you heard a little bit about what that relationship was like. Kaylee, his niece, told you, when there was an argument, John would do what John does. He would walk away. She described to you one time, to get away from the scene, he walked into his bedroom, but the defendant wouldn't let it go, pounding on his door, having to get the last word, never letting go of the fight. Kind of mirrors what happens on January 29, 2022. And maybe outward appearance, they got along. Maybe sometimes quietly they got along. But behind closed doors, relationships have up and downs. We have a bird's eye view into the relationship on January 28, 2022, because we have the text messages, not so lovey-dovey. The relationship is almost over. The tensions are simmering beneath the surface. They are not getting along. She believes Mr. Keefe is already halfway out of the relationship and he's not into it anymore. You will read them, you saw them. This relationship was unstable and at its end. And so fast forward that night. That night, after this discord, after the arguing, they go out and what do? They drink. And they drink a lot. So Keefe drinks a lot and Karen Reed drinks a lot. You've seen the McCarthy videos. You can call it 6,
And
7,
Brian
8,
Higgins
whatever you
drinks
want to call it. You can see the
a
shots
lot.
into the mixed drinks. More shots into mixed drinks. Count them yourself. Over a half dozen mixed drinks in just a few hours. Sober? And then at the waterfall, a shot, a mixed drink.
Is it more outrageous than 10 cops getting shit-faced and driving home?
It was brought up the waterfall.
Take an Uber.
There's a discord between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe. They knew each other. They were friends. Brian Higgins' conduct of speaking to Karen Reed is not honorable. It's not. But they were friendly. There was no adversarial relationship. There was no anger between them. What we heard is they barely greeted each other. Could we have slide 1, please? At the Waterfall Bar, when you see John O'Keefe come in, here's him barely greeting him. That's him and Mr. Higgins, barely greeting each other. Reality sometimes is different than argument. This is a celebratory mood. Take that down, please. Celebratory mood. A bunch of friends. They're playing around. They're hugging. They're grappling. This is a fighting technique for a murder 2 hours later. Is that the story? They're practicing their moves to murder John O'Keefe. In the celebratory mood, you don't see any aggravation or animus between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe. Inevitably, the next morning, Karen Reed is brought to the hospital and they take her blood. Now, the government doesn't have to prove that she was drunk. It is either that she's over the legal limit, 0.08, or she had enough alcohol to affect her ability to operate a motor vehicle safely, but you will know that she was far beyond the legal limit. After the retrograde analysis, almost 2 to 3 times the legal limit. Almost 2 to 3 times the legal limit. Now, it's been intimated, not come out and said, that maybe she went home and started drinking after she got home. No evidence, mind you, no evidence. And that somehow that is why she had a high blood alcohol level. It's not appropriate for me to comment on the credibility of another attorney's argument, so I won't do that. But Karen Reed will do that for her. So if we listen to slide 2, she'll tell you exactly what she thinks about that claim.
My alcohol intake's probably about 5 or 6 or 4. The drinks that they were pouring me at McCarthy's, which is where I consumed most of the alcohol, was the weakest at the time. It tasted just like old soda water with lime.
Slide 3, please.
I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway. I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway at 12:15 on January 29th. I mean, it was quiet, the roads were very quiet, you can see on the videos. And I was going, when I've had a few drinks in my driveway, I was very extra slow.
Record, edit, and share your content all in one place with Riverside. One touch recording in crisp 4K. And finesse it with idiot-proof editing. Clean up audio like magic with plenty of ways to make it your own. You can generate viral clips auto-magically. So you can post with confidence. And blow your audience.
And grab a glass. From the waterfall, you see him with a glass, and in it is a straw. Take a look at that picture. And now from 12:12 on, we virtually have a historian in the data that tells us exactly where he went, exactly step by step where he went. And how do we have that? Well, we know the defendant's car had like a black box, and Judd Welcher, Dr. Judd Welcher, took the data from the black box and downloaded it so you can see the movements and the triggering events. And then Shannon Burgess, well, if you don't like what he says, don't attack the data, attack the man. He can be mocked for his LinkedIn profile or his unupdated CV. But what he did is he found a key critical piece of this case that did not exist before. He found it recently. And it was that SD card, the SD card that everybody missed, including the defense expert. Everybody missed it. So as much as you want to make fun of him, Shannon Welcher found the key so that we could have the time and date and location coordinated for an impenetrable timeline that can't be broken. That's what Shannon Burgess did. And so we know on the way from the waterfall to 34 Fairview, Ms. Reed is driving drunk. Mr. O'Keefe is in the passenger side of the car, and they're heading their way to 34 Fairview, and they get lost. And now we have more data because John O'Keefe has a cell phone. And I said it in the beginning, it is a historian. It doesn't suffer from bias, it doesn't suffer from prejudice, it doesn't suffer from memory loss. It has data on it. And he puts on Waze, high location data, as Ian Whiff would say. And it tells you second by second the speed, the location, the movement. That's what it does. And he has healthcare data on that phone. The healthcare data separately shows his movement. And that is critical. It is critical because it not only shows his movement, it shows when he does not move. That healthcare data is critical. And it's not subject to bias. It's not in dispute. There's no other contrary evidence. It is data. On the way to 34 Fairview, alcohol fuels tension. We know that. And we know from those text messages the tension in that relationship. And then there's a trigger. There is a trigger on the way because they're lost. And when John O'Keefe calls Jen McCabe for directions, Jen McCabe says something that triggers what's going to happen next. Could I have slide 4, please?
Very close to the outbursts. In fact, when Jen was navigating John to the outbursts when I was driving, she said it's near Ashley's house. Ashley and John had hooked up prior to John and I dating.
And so as they travel to 34 Fairview, under the duress of this crumbling relationship, fueled by intoxication, we have triggers. Now, we know on their way there, we know from the data, where they went, how they moved. If we look at slide 5, Ian Whiffen showed you a guide. You could enlarge that a little, please. And it shows you with the healthcare data, it registers as flights climb, but it doesn't mean someone's climbing upstairs. What it means is there's an elevation, and he breaks down the data, the red, the green, if you could move down to this filming. And then the bottom left, that's 34 Fairview. You can see second by second the circles of their route, even the 3-point turn on Cedar Crest. That's what you see. At that point, they've left the bar. Remember, the battery temperature was 82 degrees. They're now in a car. It's now 77 degrees. Think about how accurate the battery temperature is, that it reflects the difference between being in a bar and being in a car. They take a 3-point turn at Cedar Crest. And because of Shannon Burgess and because of Judd Welcher, we have the data, and it's a triggering event. Remember, if there's an acceleration past 30%, it registers data on the car, and that's exactly what happens. Is a 3-point turn, and it all lines up with the cell phone after you synchronize the times. It's that simple. It's nothing complicated. There's nothing tricky. There's nothing devious about it. It's data. They do the 3-point turn, and you can match the cell phone clock with the Lexus clock, and when you do, you can reconcile the difference. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of argument, a lot of fights. Shannon Burgess says 21 to 29 seconds. Mr. DeSorga comes in. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to actually do anything. He wasn't given the invitation to test the data. He just looked at the report and made criticisms like a Monday morning quarterback. But even he, looking at the data, says, well, it's 3 seconds off or 2 seconds. Same window, same time. We can have all the arguments we want. They're there, they're together. The data matches up perfectly, perfectly. And so they make their way down to 34 Fairview Road. They don't stop. They don't stop at the driveway. They don't stop. And John O'Keefe gets out of the car. They go to the flagpole, and we know for 2 reasons. One, the data. And secondly, Mr. Nagel and Ms. Mason at Cedar Crest, at that intersection before it goes down to the right, they meet. They let Karen Reed go first. They follow behind in the truck. Now, at this point, Mr. O'Keefe has about 8 more minutes before the beginning of the end of his life. And he's in that car. He's in that car for most of it. Because Ms. Mason and Mr. Nagel don't see anybody get out of the truck. Nobody crosses the lawn. Nobody goes to a garage. Not just because they didn't see it. They didn't. Not because they didn't see it. Because the healthcare data on the phone shows that John O'Keefe is not moving. The car is stopped at the flagpole. The healthcare data stops. The battery stays at 77 degrees. The data is the data. You can't change it as much as you want to. It's data.
The data.
And they sit at that flagpole.
It didn't hit him.
Hank. It's 12.
Tighten your tie up, Hank. This is a big moment. You got a loose tie.
12:30.
What's wrong with you?
Remember, Ms. Mason and Ms. Nicholson, they were there about 5 minutes.
Piss me off, Brennan.
It's not exact, but about 5 minutes, they said. So there's about 2 minutes left for John O'Keefe. And what are they doing in those 2 minutes? What are the last 2 minutes of his life that he can remember that would be open to him? They're arguing. They're arguing. They're arguing. And we know they're arguing because Ms. Reed tells us through first responder Becker. She was sad. Remember, he sees her in the back of the ambulance and he's trying to calm her down. She was sad because her last moments were arguing. They're in an argument. That's why they're not going in the house. But John O'Keefe decides to get out of the car. And we know because the dome light goes on. That's what happens when you open a door.
A
He's bent
tempestuous
down. He's standing outside on the other
does not
side.
make a murder,
The
Hank.
dome light is on. And then you see the data. John O'Keefe begins to move. 12:31:56. It's the first time he has moved since they got to the flagpole, and it will be the last time he moves in his life. And he moves to 20 seconds. Ian Whiffen said that the satellites, they move, they reconnect, they pull information. He's no longer on high frequency data because waves are shut off. Now it's more random, it's low frequency. We would never suggest, and Mr. Whiffen did not claim, based on location data alone, at that point, you can tell exactly what John O'Keefe is. What he said is it was readings all night. The bullet is always near the flagpole. That doesn't mean he was always near the flagpole. He could have moved. He could have moved in the circles and come back. Location data is consistent with him never leaving the flagpole. But that in itself is not enough. But there's more. There is more. There is the healthcare data. There is the temperature of the cell phone battery. And so he moves for 20 seconds. It turns west. It does not say he walks to the house. That's not what the data says. It doesn't say that he goes straight line and he walks over to the door. In fact, could he even get to the door in 75 feet? Could he get there? Because when the investigator for the defense testified, he measures from the driveway. He never stopped at the driveway. He never measures from the flagpole. He never measures from the flagpole to the garage door. So this fantasy that somehow he walked in the garage, even though there's no evidence, there's no witness, there's no data.
Your inspector never went over to the house and inspected, so there's no data.
20 seconds of his life, and he moves.
You got to give it up for Hank Brennan
registers
in
his
one
steps.
way.
It could be pacing. It could be a
He has
straight
got nothing to
line,
work
it could
with,
be
and he is
shaking the
looking
phone.
like he does.
We don't know. We don't know. We don't know everything. We don't know every little detail and every little second. We don't have to. That's not doubt. That's not reasonable doubt. We know for that 20 seconds he's moving. And in that 20-second window, when he moves, he has his phone and he looks down, 12:32:09, he sees a text message from his friend, John McCabe. And he looks at the text message and he closes it. And then it happens. We know from the uncontroverted data from that black box, we know that Karen Reed, after he gets out of the car, drives away. She drives for at least 33 feet away from him. He's back near the flagpole. She's gone. It's over. Whatever argument is over. Whatever anger and flame has been dispassioned, she's moved on. He's separate from her. He's safe. And then she makes a decision. That's what this case is about. Then she makes a decision. She could have driven home. She could have broken up with him. Knocking on the door, like Kaylee said, getting the last word. She doesn't drive away. She takes that 6,000-pound Lexus and she makes a decision. And the decision is that she steps on the gas after banging it into reverse. Before we talk about what happens next, I want to talk to you a little bit about the charges in this case. And I hate to digress, but it's important so we really understand what we're talking about here. I have no authority to talk about the law in this case. The Honorable Judge Cannoni will do that. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the charges. Don't rely on my interpretation of the law. It's the judge who has that special power. But I want to explain to you a couple of things so when you think about what happens next, you can really assess the facts of this case with the charges against Ms. Reed. She is charged with second-degree murder. It sounds ominous. It is. It's a serious charge, second-degree murder. When most people think murder, they think shooting or stabbing somebody. It's natural to think that. Second-degree murder is different. It's not first-degree murder. I told you at the beginning of this case, I told you that we were not going to suggest or try to prove that Ms. Reed intended to kill John O'Keefe. That was never part of this case. We're not claiming that. I told you that we were not ever going to try to prove that she even intended to hit him. We never suggested we would try to prove that, and we're not trying to prove that she intended to hit him. We're not. What we are obligated to prove and what we have proven from the evidence in this case of second-degree murder is that she intended an act, and that is putting the car into reverse and heading back towards John O'Keefe. She intended that act. The question then becomes, Did her
But
conduct
her car did not
create
make contact.
a clear, plain, strong likelihood of death? Late at night, dark, beginning to snow, under the influence of alcohol, knowing where she stopped and left him after an argument, heading back in reverse to the exact spot or right near where she left him at over 24 miles per hour, accelerating at over 75%. You need to ask yourself, are you convinced if somebody does that, does that create a plain and strong likelihood of death? And if there's no doubt in your mind that she intended to hit that accelerator in reverse, and if that conduct will create a clear and plain likelihood of death, then she is guilty of that crime. Whatever the label is, she would be guilty of that crime. Now think about this. Let me give you an analogy. If somebody, maybe a teenager, someone young, impulsive, is on a bridge and they see cars going by and they have a boulder and they want to throw the boulder off, they're not looking to hurt anybody. They're not meaning to kill anybody, but they throw the boulder off the bridge because they want to see the car break, the thrill. And when they throw that boulder off the bridge and it comes down and lands on the car, and there's somebody, passenger, child, anybody in that car, and it then goes through the roof and kills the person in the car, did they intend to kill that person? No, they were trying to have a thrill throwing the rock. Did they have the malice to want that person dead? No, they didn't. But that would be an example of second-degree murder. When you take a boulder and throw it off a bridge, there's a plain and strong likelihood of death. When Karen Reed, in the midst of that tension and fight, after she drove away and was gone, disengaged, when she came back for the last word, in the darkness, the beginning of the snow, under the influence of alcohol, and decided to stop her Lexus, decided to put it in reverse, decided to accelerate 75% in the exact same direction of where she left him, and then hit him, and he died. I suggest to you that is second-degree murder. The other charge, operating under the influence of alcohol, manslaughter. It's different. It's a totally different and separate charge. Was she under the influence of alcohol? And then secondly,
yes, Hank, she was.
Did she operate
with every Albert and McCabe
Lexus wantonly and recklessly in a way that would very likely result in serious injury? When you're under the influence of alcohol and you drive a 6,000-pound Lexus in the heat of the moment at the direction of where somebody is, whether you intend to hit them,
that's not conclusive, Hank. It's reasonable doubt.
I submit
we're
to
talking
you
about
that
here.
is wanton. It is reckless. And any reasonable person,
It sure is. You shouldn't do that.
Would think it's very likely that serious injury would result. It's not a matter of intending to kill. It's not a matter of intending to hit. It is the conduct of the operation and the risk that is created. And so those two charges are two of the three. The three is leaving the scene, knowingly causing death. And we'll get to that. So now, sadly, we need to get back to 34 Fairview Road where we left. We know from the text stream data that she drove 33 feet at least, because it only picks up a 10-second window. And when it starts to pick up the data, we know she's driving at a speed. So it's more than 33 feet. We just don't know. And then when she comes back, she covers the 33 feet and 50 more. 80 feet. 80 feet. Over 80 feet. Now, nobody has ever suggested, even Dr. Welcher, when she collided with them. This data doesn't tell you collision. It's a 6,000-pound Lexus. It's a 216-pound man. It's not going to show a blip. It could have been in that 10-second window. It could have been 2 seconds after. It could have been 4 seconds after. But it's in that pocket of time, and we know it We know it because when you reconcile the data with the phone, that 20 seconds is in the same window of that 10-second window coming back. So even if it's a couple seconds later, 4 seconds later, whatever Mr. DeSorgo wants, he stops moving. John O'Keefe stops moving forever. Forever. Have slide 6, please.
Yeah, I keep thinking of Higgins in the bar. Come on, come on, come on. That's why I
You
stopped
can see this
moving.
more closely, and you can't probably see it where you're sitting, but there's important data. Data doesn't lie. And you will see acceleration, 75%. You will see speed, 24 miles per hour backwards. You will see distance, over 80 feet. That's what you're going to see in this data on that night.
Hank, that she
Anger,
backed
although
up does not
necessary
mean
in any
she
of these
hit
charges,
him.
Anger can be inferred.
And it doesn't put
For
dog bites
somebody
on an
to
arm.
come back that hard, that fast, that reckless.
We know she was mad, dude. We know
That's
she sent
obvious.
text. John, you're cheating
Likely to
on me.
create
You're
a
doing
plain
something.
and
She's,
strong
yeah,
likelihood of death.
they were tempestuous.
That data tells a story that can't be changed. Can't be attacked.
Burden of proof here, Hank.
ARCA, they did some crash tests on me. You know what else they do? Text stream data. There's nothing about that data that is uncertain. Nothing.
Really?
Take that down, please. When Miss Reed hits John O'Keefe, collides with John O'Keefe. We don't know if he went in the air a foot. We don't know if it was how much of a clip it was. We don't know if he stumbled back, but we know there's a collision. There's no doubt there's a collision because her taillight's all over the yard. It's all over the yard. And when he falls back and he hits the back of his head, his basal fracture, he's then lying there helpless. When Miss Reed leaves,
When he falls and hits the back of his head and there's a horizontal
of her
4-inch
taillight.
cut from the
all over
lawn.
the yard. All over the yard. It's called the debris field. And you've seen videos. You can't replicate the exact contact. You can't because you need where the person was hit, how fast the person was going, but you know what happened because when you look at the debris field, when a light is broken, it's no different than what was on the front yard. It's no different. She leaves him behind. She leaves her taillight behind. She goes home. And on her way home, you know she's still angry. You know she's still angry because she starts leaving him voicemails. Slide 7, please. Healthcare starts at 12:31:56, 12:32:04 to 12:32:12 is the data which is adjusted when you reconcile the clocks on the Lexus. 12:32:09 is when Mr. O'Keefe closes his phone after looking at Jen McCabe's text. 12:32:16 is his last steps. Mr. DeSorgo says that red range should move a little bit, 2 or 3 seconds. They can move it 4 seconds, 5 seconds. It doesn't matter. It's all in the same window. It doesn't change. We could have slide 10, please. Could you play that, please? Thank you. Each one of those pegs represents 10 feet. You can't place that car where it was in front of Fairview. You just can't. The data doesn't tell you that, but that tells you the movements of that car. Now, as John O'Keefe sadly lays on the ground, abandoned, you're going to have to ask yourself a question for charge number 3, leaving scene knowing somebody was injured and then died. You're going to have to ask yourself, is there evidence that Miss Reed knew that she had hit him? Don't need to prove it for murder 2. Don't need to prove it for OUI manslaughter. But for the 3rd charge, Commonwealth has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt she knew she hit him. We weren't there, but there was an eyewitness. There was a guide. And that eyewitness tells us that she knew. And that eyewitness is Karen Reed herself. She tells you that she knew. Could we have slide 8, please?
Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?
So we're in the box subscription company, Butcher Box. We ship a box of meat to your doorstep. We're trying to impact.
He somehow tried to flag me down, which was the reaction I was hoping to garner as I slowly pulled away from the house. Did he come up and maybe trip or bend over to pick up his cell phone and I ran over his foot and then he passed out drunk? I mean, I didn't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him?
That's an honest assessment of what might have happened. Oh, let it sink, Hank. Look at Hank. Dramatic pause. She's not that good of an actress, dude.
Fairview and left John behind.
You see what she said?
She didn't think he was mortally wounded.
Huh?
She knew she hit him.
She hit him.
She's asking, wondering. I don't know. I don't know.
Made her way back home.
Oh,
Not only
nice
did
try,
she leave
buddy.
debris field all over the front lawn, but she took evidence with her too. Hair, DNA on the taillight, and she drove back to John's house. And she started calling on the way back, 12:33, just a minute and a half later. And then her messages show her anger. You see, this was John's fault. This was John's fault. And her phone calls tell you about the tone and the destruction of that relationship. 53 phone calls that night. 53 phone calls, not one to 911.
Yeah, that's a hell of an acting
one to
job
Jen
if you know
McKay,
you
please
hit
go
somebody.
inside and
I'm going
try
to
to
go
help.
53 phone calls to cover up.
Not
my
one to a
steps.
hospital,
My God.
not one to anybody but him. 53 calls.
Intense woman, a
Slide
little
12,
manic,
please.
a little, yeah. Murderer? That's what's up here, Frank. Not buzzed and pissed. Because that we know.
You play voicemail one, please.
Yeah.
The calls keep coming. Cell phone temperature, 72 degrees.
Doesn't
Been
sound like a
outside
murderer.
now,
It sounds like a
not
woman who's
moving.
so deeply
On
into this
that
guy.
cold, hard ground with his cell phone under him. The warmth of his body.
Look at
cold
Mel.
ground.
Look at Mel below the
72
screen here.
degrees.
Mel hanging in
Tell
there.
you the story. As
Respect
this
Mel.
temperature plummets and that cell phone battery is compromised, so is John O'Keefe. And him and his cell phone alone on that yard. 66 degrees at 12:45. It is plummeting. Ian Whiffen's taking a phone and putting it in a freezer, not a same analogy. The idea that means that John O'Keefe was in the house, absurd. 66 turns to 61, it's 12:53. 48 unanswered calls from the defendant. He's not in at a party. He's not wrestling with Brian Higgins. He's not in a fight. If he's in a fight, his cell phone would be moving. There'd be healthcare data. There'd be steps. If he got into the house in 20 seconds and his cell phone is found under his body the next day, then how would he get back outside? There would be more
Tucked
steps.
neatly underneath
Because
him.
this phone is working. The data is the data. There's nothing wrong with it. It's registering everything. The temperature, the movement. He doesn't go in any house. He can't go in any house. His phone never moves again. Voicemail number 3, please. Listen to this.
John, I'm dealing with a fucking kid. Nobody knows what the fuck you are, you fucking pervert.
Did you hear that? Nobody knows where you are. It is 12:59. John O'Keefe has been on that lawn for about 27 minutes. She hasn't called anybody
He wasn't
else,
there at
hasn't
2 in the
spoken, has
morning
no
when the plow
information.
driver went by, Hank.
Nobody's called her.
It
You see
wasn't
her phone records. And she
massive
says,
headlights.
nobody knows where you are. She knows. She knows. Nobody does know where he is. Except her. Except her. Why is she asking nobody knows who you are? She is starting to get panicked because she knows she hit him. Not suggesting she meant to kill him or for him to die, but she knows she hit him and now he's not responding and she's getting nervous and she's getting anxious and she's leaving call after call after call He's not answering. He's not calling back. He's not even picking up the phone. And we know what's happening at this point. Panic, drunken denial, it's setting in. And so then we see the healthcare data from Miss Reed's phone. She doesn't move after 1 o'clock. She could be sitting, she could have fallen asleep, but she doesn't move for a while. But she wakes up. She wakes up early the next morning. Take that down, please. And when she wakes up, she doesn't call Jen McCabe and say, "Where's John?" She doesn't call Brian Higgins, has his number, has been texting with him. "Hey, was John at a party with you? Did you see John tonight?" She knows exactly where she is, and she's frantic. So she wakes up Kaylee, that young girl at the time, and she says, she's panicked, she can't understand what she's saying. "Call Jen McCabe. Call Jen McCabe." Why is she calling Jen McCabe? She calls Jen McCabe. You know what she doesn't say when she calls Jen McCabe? "When did he leave the house? What happened last night?" No. She calls and says, "I left him at the waterfall. I left him at the waterfall." See, now it's gone from panicked to self-preservation. "I left him at the waterfall." And Jen says, "Left him at the waterfall? He saw you in front of the house." Click. Hangs up. Hangs up. So then she calls someone that she doesn't know very well. She calls Carrie Roberts. But now she has to pivot because someone has seen her in the exact spot that John will be found soon. Whether she's the first one there or somebody else, John will be found. Maybe Lucky missed him. It's a snowstorm. You can't see. But someone's going to find him at some point. So she calls Carrie Roberts. It's no longer she left him at the waterfall. She pivots. And she calls, "Carrie, Carrie, Carrie. John's dead. I think he got hit by a plow." Why do you think she chose those words? Why did she choose those words? Because she knew that there was a collision with a large motor vehicle, and she had to substitute her 6,000-pound Lexus for another big vehicle. "I think he got hit by a plow." And so now we have the introduction of Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts. Phone calls that they probably never, ever wanted. A worse nightmare to get a call like that for what's going to happen, what they're going to see, what they'll never be able to forget. But because the defendant is John O'Keefe's girlfriend, they wake up in the middle of the night in a blizzard out of their kindness, their loyalty, their devotion to John O'Keefe. And when she calls them and tells them that she wants them to come out, this soccer mom with a perfectly normal life gets drawn into this whole farce, and she answers that call. She gets out of bed. The spirit and kindness she displays to put herself in that position because someone asked for help, because that's what good people do. Carrie Roberts didn't know Jen McCabe. They both knew John. They met each other once years before. Carrie Roberts, separately at that time, answers the call, gets out of bed, drives to go help because they have a common denominator, a common bond, John O'Keefe. And so you hear and see at 5:07, the defendant leaves Meadows. She leaves. And Kaylee is behind waiting. And you see her back up, and Judd Welch just showed you all of those demonstrations where you could see the unsettled snow in the back, and after the bump, you can see the pieces missing, no taillight. There's no taillight on the ground, all the white snow. There's no crack, there's no break. It's a nudge. It's a nudge. But the taillight has already been broken because when you look at the video, not one little piece, it's still framed, little angle with the light, the brakes are. You take a look, you'll be able to slow it down. You'll see the exact same piece is missing because it's back at Fairview. That's why it's missing. It's not there. It's back at Fairview. And then she leaves at 5:07. She gets to Jen McCabe's about, 5:35. 28 minutes. It's about a 10-minute ride. Where did she go in 28 minutes? Where did she go? We don't know. We don't have data for that. But we know when she gets to Jen McCabe's house, she is panicked, frantic, out of her mind, screaming, waking everybody up. Jen McCabe comes down, can't understand her, going out to the car to try to console her. Why is she so frantic? Why can't she speak? Why can't she say a word? Because John went out and had a drink and fell asleep on a couch? Because John would maybe be cheating on her? What is causing this extraordinary duress? Did she stop somewhere on the way by? Did she just see death?
Lisa? Did she
Terry
just
Roberts
see
comes,
death? Look at
take
this guy.
charge kind of person.
Why
She
didn't you
pulls him
put
behind,
Brian,
she
Brian,
sees the broken tail light
Matt,
of Jen McCabe's driveway, and she decides she's going to
Colin,
commandeer this.
anyone else?
We're going to the back
Chris,
Meadows.
understand.
You're going to follow me, leave the car, I'll drive. At this point, Jen and Kerry don't know each other. They've only met once. And they go back to Meadows. They obviously don't find John because he's back at 34 Fairview. And then they start their way towards 34 Fairview. They start driving towards 34 Fairview, and they're looking. And you heard from Kerry Roberts, Jen McCabe, they're looking out the window. They can't see a thing. The snow, the blizzard, the weather, the darkness, they can't see anything. And they're driving and driving, and they decide they're going back to 34 Fairview. And this is remarkable. This is remarkable. When they start their way past towards 34 Fairview, they get close. And when they get close, they can see nothing. But the defendant screams, "Stop, let me out." And they look around and they say, "What? Let me out, let me out." She does not see John O'Keefe. She knows where he is. She knows exactly where he is. She knows where to find him. She knows where to expect to find them because she knows where she left him. She tells us.
So when a client comes to us with an ask to launch an influencer marketing campaign, the process is pretty streamlined.
Driving Jen's in the passenger seat. And I described this to everyone, so you probably know this before, but John looked like a buffalo on the prairie. It was just a lawn in a heat that it wasn't a bush or a hydrant or a dog. It was a weird shaped lump at that time in those elements. And I was looking to find him on the side of the road. I was expecting I'd find him.
as easily as Karen saw him on the lawn, it's as easy as the plow driver did not see him on the lawn. It's a big white lawn. Okay? Anything that is there, it's obvious.
And that is John O'Keefe.
Brian Albert would have known that if he ever came out of his house.
She tells us she knows where she left John O'Keefe. And so they go over to Mr. O'Keefe, Kerry, and Karen. And she's upset, there's no doubt. I am not for a second trying to deprive her of the unrest and the trauma that is happening at this scene. Doesn't change what happened before, but I appreciate the trauma. And they're trying to help him. And guess what happens when they first move him around 603, 604? Ian Whiffen, data. The cell phone battery gets the cool air, presses on the battery, the cell phone battery drops. Healthcare data, he has not moved since that 22nd, hasn't moved. They start shaking him, you're going to see, when you look at the records, that healthcare data starts to move. He's been there all night. All night. Nobody else. Her. And so when they try to help him, she says something that is remarkable. She says, there's a piece of glass stuck in his nose. And she plucks it out. And she says when she plucks it out, blood spurts out. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Remember that. Piece of glass, pulls it out, blood spurts out. That's what she says. As they try to help John, Jen is calling 911. They would like you to believe there's a conspiracy. That the glass that's found in Mr. O'Keefe's body is somehow from inside the Albert house. The glass, well, you will hear in the clips, if we don't play it, you'll have all the clips with you. She talks about the fact that he took her walker. He took the glass. She says it. So the Albert House, they don't need to give glass. He already has the glass with the straw that's later found on the street, by the way. That's what happens on an impact. Things move. The glass comes with him, lands near his body. Debris field moves past him. Shoe, hat, straw. Jen McCabe makes a call to her sister, and they say because it registers 29 seconds, a Cellbrite record is not the same as a call detail record. There's no evidence. It was a conversation. No lights go on. There's no conspiracy. You can call somebody. It can ring. It can go to voicemail. They have no evidence, none, that there's a conversation between Jen McCabe, the person who was ripped out of her sleep to come help, and her sister for some grand conspiracy. And so what happens next is traumatic. Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe see their best friend prone, lifeless, frozen on the ground. And they're living this torment because somebody brought them into this. When they're trying to help John, there is not one suggestion from anybody that John ever went into that house. There's no reason to go into that house because John was never in the house. Not one time does anybody say, what time did he leave? I thought he went in there. Not even a whisper of it because it never, ever happened. When they find their friend John, he's not 20 feet off the side of the road like Mr. Rentschler or Mr. Wolf thinks. He's right there by the side of the road, close by the curb. Could we have slide 14, please? You can see there's Kerry Roberts' vehicle, and then on the left, you can see where they're working. Right off the road, that's not 20 feet. That is a clip, a stumble, and a fall. And remember, when John O'Keefe fell, there wasn't snow. It was just the beginning of a dusting. It was the cold, hard ground. Remember what Dr. Isaac Wolf told us about cold, hard ground? Causes this type of injury all the time. All the time. If we could go to slide 16, please. Remember the glass in the nose? The glass in the nose. See on the bottom left, that's where the Canton Police Department found the glass that he took from the car, from the waterfall. And then exhibit 195, matching glass. On February 3rd, the matching piece of glass was found on the street. The matching piece of glass, the glass that was found with Mr. O'Keefe, was found on the street. He didn't fall back 8, 10 feet from the road. It broke, and then it shattered and went to the street. I would suggest to you it broke at the time of the collision, and he carried the glass with him, leaving the evidence behind, a trail to memorialize what happened to him that night. Remember the straw? I asked you to take a look at that picture when you're leaving the waterfall at 12:12, the black straw in the drink on the street. Collision, glass, nose, straw, back, hits his head. You play the clip on the left, please. 59.
So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder.
169, please.
So John's laying there, his left and his right, and I approached John from the left. That's where the street is. And he had a piece of glass, like perched on his nose, like just wedged like a splinter would be. And I just pulled it, and as soon as I pulled it, it just gushed blood down his face.
Thank you. 911's called by Jen McCabe. She's not hiding from anybody. She's trying to help. She's bringing attention to the situation. And when 911 comes, we have first responders. These people are heroes. Some of them, you heard from some of them, they were born to help people. That's what their life is about. The detail on all their mechanics, getting to work 2 hours early in the middle of the blizzard so that you're there on time so you can help people. These are the core of our community. Mr. Nuttall, this is what he does. He rushes to go help He's the first person on his knees. He doesn't know this person from anybody. But to him, it's another human being. This is his passion. Katie McLaughlin, first responder. This is not just a profession, it's her life. Yes, she knows Caitlin Albert. Do you think she went there that night at a party and set up a murder and came back? And so they tell you what happens at the scene. Some things hard to remember, some things people will never forget. When you're in a traumatic incident, sometimes it's something you'll never, ever forget. And Timothy Nuttall remembers speaking to the defendant. I hit him. Remember, he's on his knees. What happened? I hit him. I hit him. She is now coming to terms with the moment. Her fear is realized. She hit him. She clipped him. She didn't think he was mortally wounded. She panicked. She can't come to terms with it, so she has to bring people with her to face it. And now she's facing the reality of what she had done. And her emotion is overwhelming. I hit him. I hit him. She speaks to Miss McLaughlin. I hit him. Not did I hit him? Could I hit him? Perhaps I hit him. That was earlier. Now she's recognizing what she did. I hit him. And these people are making it up. Anybody
Yeah, that's right.
Anything adverse,
If she hit him, where are the broken bones?
inconsistent or inconvenient is a liar.
Why the eye? Why the back of the head? Why the contusions? Nothing below. Hank, you're just stretching, buddy.
Or is it that these good people who went there for a total stranger to do their duty to help happen to remember that she admitted what she had done? I know that doesn't reconcile with the boogeyman Proctor and the bad government. I know it doesn't reconcile with no DNA on this piece of that piece. I know it doesn't reconcile with everybody setting up the girl. I know that doesn't reconcile. But the reality is you have independent core people who hear her say, I hit him. I hit him. And the attempt is to portray everybody as a liar. But you don't have to rely just on these good people, although you should. You should. You don't have to, because we have a guide, and it's Karen Reed. Slide 17.
So what was said was, did I hit him? I always said I hit him, but did I really say this many times as law enforcement's claiming I said it?
Thank you. I know it doesn't fit the theme, the theory, the story, but she tells you herself. She endorses those good people exactly what they had heard. She tells you herself she hit him. It's undeniable, it's unmistakable, it's inconvenient. But the truth has a way of seeping up to the daylight. It can be oppressed and suppressed and pushed down and covered and twisted, but it rises. It rises. And it is not a coincidence. There's no coincidence that Mr. Nuttall and Ms. McLaughlin hear exactly that. She tells you. And Jen McCabe, when she's sitting next to or standing next to Ms. McLaughlin, she tells you that she saw or heard the same thing. Remember what happened to her on the stand when she had the audacity to say, I heard her say it? What happened to her? This woman who never even wanted to leave her home that day, pulled out into a storm to see her best friend dead. What happened when she had the audacity to say that? And now we know that the defendant herself said the same thing. And the funny thing, the ironic thing is, you will see in a photo when Ms. McLaughlin, firefighter, was speaking to the defendant, Ms. McCabe was next to her. Ms. McCabe was trying to protect her, trying to shut her up. Don't talk, you're upset, stop saying crazy things. The villain of this story was trying to help the defendant from incriminating herself. The irony.
Problem solved. Fiverr's got talented freelancers for anything we need.
Yeah! You're going to have a chance to look at it. If it wasn't so tragic, it is interesting. It is interesting if you like data. The 29, 12, 13, they're leaving the waterfall 82 degrees, 12:22. In the car, 77 degrees, 12:37. About 3.5 minutes after the defendant collides with John O'Keefe, it started to go down 72, 12:45, 66, 12:53, 61, and you see it drop and steady off at 1:36. Remember, cell phone battery under him, John O'Keefe either struggling for life or he's passed. And his body's still warm either way under him. Doesn't move again until 6:06. It drops down 7 degrees because the women are pulling on him. The cold air is hitting the battery. What happens at 6:15? You're going to see the video. You've seen it. Still photos. Kerry Roberts goes over, picks up the phone. Not only does she pick up the phone, she puts it in her pocket, and then 20 minutes later, the next reading, the temperature rises. That's not convenient. That's not a coincidence. That's fact. That's data. And then the phone is passed, put in a warm environment, and it raises up. 6:15. How can someone conspire to pick up a phone on the side of the yard that was under Mr. O'Keefe's body at 6:15 and know the battery temperature was then going to rise? Not only did the battery temperature rise, when you look at the healthcare data, at 6:15 when she picks up the phone, you know what happens to the healthcare data, right? It starts to move. It's data. It's data. So, while they're going through this duress, the defendant asked Jen McCabe for yet another favor. Look up hypothermia. Find out how long it takes for someone to die in a cold. And there's Miss McCabe in her winter jacket, soccer mom, trying to help. She has MS. Her hands aren't working. She's trying to type in what's happening during that time. It's a frantic scene. She tells you that the defendant then wants to run back to the ambulance, so she goes with her, never finishes or completes the input. And then she tries it again. At 6:23, at 6:24. That's what this woman did that night, that morning. Not only for her friend, for her. For her. That's what she did. And what happens to her after? Because the timestamp, when you open the timestamp, it's at the time it's open, and she's in bed at 2:27 looking up Hockomock Sports because she is so interested in the kids' sports, and that timestamp stays open. And she goes to that tab the next morning when she puts in how long to die in cold. And that is being portrayed that she's in a conspiracy. She gets vilified as a murderer, a soccer mom who came to help. It took Ian Whiffen 5 minutes to show you a live demonstration on how simple that works. That she's not deleting anything. Jessica Hyde told you it's automatic deletions over time. You usually can't delete that information. That's not a click and swipe like the good Dr. Wolf from Arca knows how to do. This can't be erased. But they still hold on to this. As they argue to you and all the injustices that have been done, they tell you, they want you to believe, or take a flyer on the fact that she looked up how long to die in the cold at 2:27. It is an absolute contrary to the science. There's no basis to support it, but they stand here in front of you. Why? Because every time they say something like that, you look the other way. Don't look at her. Look the other way. 2:27, look the other way. Don't look at what she did. Former Trooper Proctor, look the other way. Don't look at her. Every time they make those, oh, she got the glass from inside the Albert, maybe in the basement. Look the other way. Don't look the other way. Look at the facts. Look at the data. And it all leads to one person. There's no grand conspiracy. It leads to one person, the defendant. And it's not just the data and facts. It's her herself. Let's talk about Mr. Proctor. You were invoked with this emotion early in the opening that this is a cancer. That's a tough word. Try to evoke that primal reaction, disgust. I'm not saying you shouldn't be disgusted by the text messages. You should. They're not defensible. I don't stand here and defend impropriety. I don't. But that doesn't change the physical evidence, the scientific evidence, and the data. He was terminated. He paid a penalty. He was held responsible for what he did. He should have been. He should have been. But that doesn't get a free pass. That doesn't change the facts. It doesn't change the physical evidence. It doesn't change the science. It's unfortunate. It's distasteful. It's dishonorable. Remember, Trooper McKennick was asked, was the investigation with honor and integrity? And he said it was. Was Trooper Proctor's effort honor and integrity? And he said it was integrity. But he never said honor. That's a man of honor. military service, dedicated to his country, highest level of clearances to the President of the United States, now a state trooper, he would not say that Trooper Proctor was honorable. Because he wasn't. He wasn't, but that does not change, doesn't create a conspiracy, doesn't invent a dog. It doesn't make somebody in a house something they're not. It just doesn't. When you read those text messages, they're hard to look at. It's unfair. It's unfair. And if there was a penalty more than being fired, well, maybe that penalty would be deserved. But it has nothing to do with the justice in this case. It just doesn't. There's not one piece of evidence, not one, that we can look at and say, this was tampered with. This was planted. This was distorted. Remember when we introduced the taillights at the beginning? I didn't introduce 3 of the taillights, but then the defense did, so I put them in. Those were taillights that were only found by Trooper Proctor. I did not put that evidence in. Understanding those text messages and appreciating the disdain one might have for his comments. Not that there was any evidence of tampering, not that there was any evidence that it was not true, but I didn't put that evidence before you because we didn't need Trooper Proctor in this case. We don't need Trooper Proctor to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why I didn't introduce that evidence to you. Now, there's been a lot of talk about planting of taillight. We know the taillight wasn't planted because Trooper Buchanan and Mr. Proctor did not go down to Dighton to see Miss Reed until later in the afternoon. We know from the 507 video, we've seen that. We know the taillight was already missing when she's leaving the driveway. When the good Canton police detectives went to do a wellness check to care for those young children, and they went to the house inadvertently, they didn't even know it, the dash cam captured the back of the car. The taillight packed with snow is missing. It's already gone. It can't be planted. At this point, Trooper Proctor's still in his pajamas. He's not even on the case. He's not even on the scene. He hasn't been near the car. And then the Dighton videos themselves, when you close it, you can take it at an angle and it moves, but if you get the right angle, you can see it's missing. It's gone. Can we have slide 18, please? .507. You can play any angle you want, but if you look at this angle, it's gone. You know, plant is already gone. You know where it is? 34 Fairview Road, on the refield. January 29, 2022, 823. Look at the right-hand side. Look at the left-hand side. It's packed with snow. It's gone. It's gone. And the same thing when you do the videos, it's a different angle, a little smaller, but if you play that and watch the Lexus go up and down and slow it down, you'll see it expands. It's gone. So when you have Dighton Officer Barrows come in here and try to tell you what he saw in the Sally Port, couldn't have been it. You got to ask yourself, what interest does he have coming in here in this case? A lot of attention on this case, a lot of people watching. Comes in after, of course, driving all the way out to the defense attorney's hotel to meet in a conference room so he can get a subpoena. He spends 2 hours driving up and back so that he can conveniently get a subpoena that tells him to appear, which he could have got by fax or in the mail. And so when he comes in, what he says is, that's absolutely not what I saw. Absolutely not. And then he claims at the last time he testified, he had made the same statement. I showed him his transcript. And did you see the redness creep over his face? He never said this before. In fact, he testified to the opposite. And so he sits on the stand with a new story after a meeting. We don't know why, but then I show him that bottom right photo with the snow, with it missing. And I say, is this the way it looked? It's of course before the snow melts out in the Sally Port so that you can see it unexposed. And he says, yes, he had to agree. This taillight was gone. There's no boogeyman. There's no plant. There's no Higgins at the Sally Port. There's no one tearing out pieces. In fact, remember I played you a clip and you'll have it where the defendant says, I was picking out pieces. It was crashed in. The bulb was showing when I was showing Kerry and Jen when they went back to Meadows. If you don't remember, listen to that clip. You'll hear it. Unfortunately, there's no ring video when they go back to Meadows. There's a ring video when she leaves. There's no ring video when she gets back. And so Now, when we're trying to look the other way, we want to find a dog bite. So enter Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell, according to her, nice woman, nice doctor, very accomplished. I respect that. She's the only dog expert in the world. The thing is, we know no idea what that expertise means. She volunteers for the job. She wants to be here, her profile, but she can't explain the methodology. What are you looking for in a dog bite? She can't tell us. It starts a year ago that it's claws, it's teeth, and then it's claws, then it's teeth, then it's I don't know. And then when you look at each of the different parts of the abrasions, she says, well, I can't tell if I look at each one of them, but all together it's a dog bite. It's a dog attack. That is the masterful expertise that the defense has bragged about bringing in. Dr. Russell telling you, because she says this is a dog bite. She has never been in a forensic situation where she's looked at a wound and identified it as a dog bite before. This is the first time, the only time she's ever done it. And what she says is these are not punctures. Punctures means it goes into the skin, a wound. There's no punctures. And she's sure because she's an expert, so you should rely on her because she's coming in saying she's an expert and she's being presented. Yet, after saying there's no punctures.
Start losing weight with LifeMD's prescription GLP-1 weight management program. With at-home virtual.
It's a dog. Oh, is it? No method, no methodology, no history of this, no prior testimony that we know of other than arbitrarily what she says. And she says the exact opposite of Dr. Russell. Why is that? How does that happen? So obviously there is no science to looking at an abrasion and saying where it came from. They give us no detail. They give us nothing that we should rely on. They contradict each other.
Other than pig DNA on the bites.
And so we have now the issue of the defense has said over and over again, there's no collision. There's no collision. There's no collision. And they had a number of witnesses come in to try to say that. And they point to Dr. Scotty Bello, who works at the medical examiner's office. She tells you that she doesn't see injuries consistent with a collision. She's looking at this case for 90 days. 90 days. The evidence in this case did not stop. It continued for 2 years. She knows nothing about the data, nothing about the black box, nothing about the interviews of Miss Reed. She doesn't know about the DNA. She doesn't know about the shards in the arm or in the clothes. Strike that in the clothes. She knows nothing about that. So in 90 days, she didn't see any lower body injuries. She didn't see any lower extremity injuries, which are very common in car collisions. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen because she, in 90 days, saw a fraction of the information. A fraction. And we know now, argument back and forth for days about lower body injuries, the suggestion is a car accident can affect everybody differently depending on the angle, the scope, the speed. Some people can get plowed over by a car and have no injuries. Some people can get touched lightly and have more injuries. And there was the debate about no lower body injuries. Well, ARCA dispelled that in their dummy test that you can have a collision with no lower body injuries. They did that for us. Thank you. And so the idea that at the time in 90 days that she doesn't have enough information to say consistent with a car accident doesn't mean there's no car accident. Let me talk a little bit about ARCA. I don't want to waste too much time with them. What expert who's supposed to come to you, they're not the arbiter of truth. Their opinions weigh no more than yours. Your common sense has more value than an expert's opinion. Their job is to assist you to explain what their expertise is so that it's a tool for you so that you can make a decision. That's objectivity. We've heard words like confirmation bias, it's objectivity. Mr. Wolf got on the stand, and before we even started, you have to ask yourself, what expert has a court order for text messages and then deletes the text messages? What expert?
Oh, yeah?
What objective?
What guy throws his phone away at a military base the day before data preservation and takes the SIM card out and smashes that in a separate dumpster?
Never used it before, hasn't used it since. And so when he did his tests, he used a lower weight arm. Wasn't trying to bash him, wasn't trying to insult him, tried to get him just to recognize that a 9.38 pound arm is less weight than John O'Keefe's metric, which would be 11.8. That's all. And because it's a lighter arm, it takes more speed to create the same damage. I don't know science, I don't know math very well, but that's basic. It's basic. And he fought me over and over again. Did he seem objective that he was trying to help you? Because Dr. Renzel came in the next day and said, well, you have to adjust for that. That's all I asked him for an hour about adjusting, just like Judge Welcher adjusted. Do you adjust it? And he tried to talk to me like I was making something up. His own colleague had to admit it. Now, it's funny, he admitted it before he got through his credentials. No sequestration order violations. Nobody was coaching him, but he knew enough to come in at the beginning and get right on that point. And speaking of sequestration, remember Dr. Russell on her limo ride over? If Brendan asks you a question, make sure you ask for a transcript. Impede the progress. Slow down the questioning. Interfere. Sequestration orders is so there's fundamental fairness for all witnesses, not just some. And so what happens with Dr. Renzel, we don't know, but we do know he comes in here and he tells you that he was not getting information that was helping him the last time he testified. He insisted. I asked him 5 times, was he getting information that would help him in his testimony? Not from the defense, from his former employer. And he said, no, no, no. And at the end of the examination, he reads his transcript and it's yes, yes, yes. And he tells us that he's independent and objective. I asked him about a luncheon, not a big deal, just asking him about it. And he says, I have a sandwich and I stand in the corner until I remind him that we got video footage from a documentarian and he's in one of the scenes. And then things change. So when you talk about objectivity and who to trust, they can come in and say, Judge Welcher said this and that. It doesn't make it so. Judge Welcher, Dr. Welcher, never in any report, in any presentation, in any testimony to you, ever suggested this is how it happened. This was how his arm was. This is how his feet was. He was trying to show whether or not the orientation. Could this happen with the angle, with the height? That's all that test was. It was no more. But what they do is they reposture it, repackage it, and say it means this when it doesn't, and we're going to show you why it's not that, therefore we win. That's all that is. It's semantics. Judge Welcher, Dr. Welcher, never suggested that. And his work on text stream data, unassailable. And so what we have, inevitably, is we have a timeline that never moves, data that never changes, physical evidence that can't be put in that spot without a collision. We have, inevitably, proof, without any doubt, that on January 29, 2022, Ms. Reed was with Mr. O'Keefe and she got drunk. She drank. She was 2 to 3 times over the legal limit. And they went to a party, an after party, and they were fighting. It was a relationship in decline, and he got out of the car, and he had a brief window of life left. And when he got out, and she drove away, she couldn't let it go. She got drunk, she hit him, she left him to die. It's that simple. We don't know exactly how this collision happened, but we have a good idea from the physical evidence, and we know that it happened. Can someone have a collision without lower body injuries? Could I have slide 19, please? You bet they can. We don't know if this is the body position. We don't know if this is the exact speed, but what it tells us, this is viable. Look at the debris field. Look at his turn. Remember his sneaker on that curb that got lodged against the sneaker? Mr. O'Keefe then falls back, hits his head, counter coup, left to die. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt what happened that night. There is no doubt who did it. You have a very difficult task ahead of you when you consider the evidence and you consider the law. Very difficult. There are 3 charges. There is second-degree murder. Ms. Reed, when she chose to drive back at Mr. O'Keefe in that night with a 6,000-pound Lexus, in that anger, 75%, whether she meant to hit him or not, didn't mean to kill him, she hit him. It is a plain and strong likelihood of death You would never back down your driveway.
No injuries below the neck, Hank.
Kill somebody? You would never do it because you would
Back of the head, front of the head, contusions,
speed,
nothing below. She didn't hit
someone
him.
would die. That's second-degree murder. OUI manslaughter. She's drunk. She was reckless. She doesn't have to know she hit him. She doesn't even have to know she hit him. But she did. She did. And she left a man who was kind and generous and thoughtful. She left him alone. She left him alone to die. Could I have slide 22, please? He's not an it. John O'Keefe is not a body. John O'Keefe was not a buffalo on a prairie. John O'Keefe was a person, and he was murdered by Karen Reed.
Take that, thank you.
We're done.
All right, jurors, the next step is my instructions to you on the law. I'm not going to do that right now. You've been sitting for a long time. So I do have to tell you, even though you've just heard the closing argument, you cannot discuss this case even with each other. All right, so we'll send you back for lunch. It's going to be a shorter lunch. My instructions are long, and we want you to be able to get this case to start deliberations today. So
Oh, Bev.
I'm going to send you back maybe about a half an hour. Is that enough time?
Yes, I'm very nervous because I know things are going to get very difficult for me now.
I'll give you my instructions on the law, and then
Thank you so much. Let's try and forget everything about the first trial.
There are 18 of you.
Hi, Bev.
We seat only 12 deliberating judges.
Yes.
So 6 of you are going to be altered. I can just tell you that. We know the odds, right? And I can tell you it's Mr. McDermott's least favorite part of his job is smoking. So we'll do that this afternoon. Do not discuss this case.
We know, Bev. We know. Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. Okay, wow. What do we think here, Bev? That was terrific. Closed. Alan Jackson, I have delivered an unbelievable close. Right? I thought he was unbelievable. Steve, my producer, Steve over here is he's with us. We love Steve. Steve, can you hop in there and double box? This could be interesting. Let's see if we can get Steve in there. Does that happen? Folks, this is incredible. Where's Krowski? Send Krowski a link over there. I want Joe Krowski on here immediately. Alan Jackson was unbelievable. That was one of the best closings I have ever seen. Emphatic. Hank Brennan was incredible. Hank Brennan kept going to the data, to the steps. The data. The guy is severely compromised. The question is, oh, get that out of here. How about a little? Wow. I have to say, that was the most impressive closing I've ever seen by Alan Jackson. He was smart to go first. I mean, it's good to have him. I thought that was incredible. All right, here's what's going to happen. We're going to take a break. And when this comes back, we are going to be here for the jury. Steve, how do we get rid of that music? Guys, we're trying to figure this shit out. And believe me, it's a pain in the neck. But when that terrible music comes on, what can we do? We're going to take a break. I got to do some voiceovers for Extra, the television show. Okay? I still have to do that. And it's a tough one, by the way, because I've got a very, very close personal friend, and what's happening with his wife is the new lead story for tonight, which I have to process. But anyway, this two things happening at once. But this closing, that was a big stretch by Hank. Literally, he needed 15 minutes to make that to the points he wanted to make. And he took 75 minutes. He had to fill the time, or else it looked like, in this case, if he was so confident, with the little that he said about data, he would have made the thing in 15 minutes and said, that's all I need. This is so obviously what happened. That's all I need. And then he would have just dropped the mic. But the fact that he went on as long as he did, making the same point, suggests to me a little overcompensation, little filling. Jackson did not leave a dull moment. I have to tell you, it was beyond impressive. So we're going to shake down. We're going to shake down. We're going to track down. If I shake him down, I might have to shake him down. Joe Krowski, criminal defense attorney right there. Krowski, I love you, buddy. We're gonna, when the jury comes back, we're going to get you on. I've texted Alan Jackson himself and Karen. I hope that Alan will be joining us. I have communicated with him in the past. He has been shut off during the trial, but I hope Alan will pop in. And I want to let's get the comments just flaring here. This is an unbelievable case. I'm telling you, the feds are going to have to come in. If Karen is innocent, not guilty, which we believe she is, if she goes away, I thought it was going to be maybe the best thing that could happen for the Commonwealth is a mistrial hung jury, right? They can't agree, hung jury. And then they go to Mrs. O'Keefe and they say, we've done it twice. Let's turn our attention now to honoring the life of John. It's a miscarriage of justice. We can't believe it. Let's get off of this and just honor John at this point. They hope that she says, okay, and goes with it. Then they all meet every year at the same time and go through the ritual of honoring John until the Bryans stop coming after a couple of years and it starts to drift away and it goes away. That's the best that can happen here for them. The worst that can happen is that they actually go and figure out what did happen. Who did strike John O'Keefe? I want that. The feds are going to come in here, maybe investigate the corruption. If there is any alleged corruption, I should say. But in the end, I mean, this isn't like the OJ trial. Let's say, let's find out who actually did it. Okay, OJ. I do want to know what happened to that guy. Amazing. I mean, you review all the things that you've heard. The cop's camera across the street, the neighbor whose camera could have filmed the whole thing. Oh, we never decided to look at that. That disappeared just like Chloe, the dog. This is unbelievable. Let's get in here. Look at these comments. Lunch break can be awesome for you watching UA Jackson. Yeah, have a nice sandwich. Bev. No, he's actually bringing up the ham sandwich. These people are funny over here. Oh, God. This is incredible. Yeah, Jackson cut the rug, baby. He did. He was just a really impressive lawyer. You know what? I thought he did okay because he brought the victim out right away. He really went on Karen. She isn't likable, so he was smart. Oh, this is for Hank. Okay, even though I didn't believe it, he was smart. Well, I think Hank Brennan's, he's a good prosecutor. He's just handed a shit case. I mean, what are you going to do? A lot of these guys do. I mean, that's the thing. I wouldn't want to be a lawyer on either side because if I'm sitting there with somebody, that I don't think I'd be a terrible lawyer because I couldn't have allegiance to the craft, allegiance to the system if I knew I was representing a scumbag. If I knew I was representing some guy that had assaulted women or something, I'd just be like, excuse me, I'm going to recuse myself because the piece of shit that I'm representing over here is definitely that. And I don't need a notch in my belt for a victory. I need to be able to sleep at night. Amen, Bushman. I'd drop this mic if it wasn't weighted. My God, my wife texted me terrible things when she got mad at me. Can I have her arrested because mad women are murderous? I want to live. There's Tim. Pop it up. Look at Tim said here. I get you, Tim. Tom. Sorry. Tiny Tom. Was it Tiny Tom or Tiny Tim? Thanks, Billy. First punch. You are welcome. Jackson is the epitome of what you want in your corner. No question about that. Tom, I'm sorry. Everybody give Tom. Oh, my God. Signed petition to remove Judge Bev. I hope someone investigates entire police department. How can you trust any of them? Well, I mean, it's the thin blue line. I mean, for right now, they've got a lot riding on this. And if the feds come in and investigate this, what else are they going to investigate? They're going to open a can of worms here. That's why there's so much riding on this. The Commonwealth's entire case was based on a woman with a history of jumping to conclusion, hysteria, waking up with hysteria, where she was jumping to conclusions. Okay, speaking of hysteria, I don't know what you're talking about. But I'll tell you this. I mean, let's be honest about Karen Reed, right? I mean, she's a little wild, right? I mean, she said, these cocktails were so weak. They were just pouring me weak cocktails. Well, after the fifth cocktail, they all seem weak, don't they? That's what's happening. That's why you got to have the 2 cocktail limit. All right, 3, fine, whatever. But depending on your weight, would I want a girlfriend to be texting me like an animal if I went inside or whatever? First of all, I wouldn't be going to a party, having her drop me off and not going with her at 12:30 in the morning. Not at that age. And what's going on with these people? I mean, like Higgins and Albert and stuff. You're my age. You guys look terrible. 9 cocktails, that's too many. Justice for Sandra. I agree. LOL. You would not want to see her or hear my rage. Text. Uh-oh. And Koosmail messages to my ex-husband. Yes, we want to see them, Saggy Bitch 84. Or was that Saggy Beach? I hope it's Saggy Beach. I didn't call you that, by the way. Hey, let's see what's going on. Hot fox. Billy is such a hot fox. Maggie Dog, what's going on, girl? You think this is a hot fox? You need an examination. This old guy. Bev needs a drink. Bev needs a Bev like you read about. No kidding. Oh my God. Hey, Billy, what's going on? Hey, how you doing? I'm just an asshole sometimes. Is that what they call you? Yeah, aren't we all? Oh my God. I'm telling you, man, this should be quick. I think this jury deliberates for like seconds. I mean, I think they go back. I think they come back quickly. And I thought there was going to be, I think it's going to be unanimous. By the way, let's not forget, in the first trial, it was unanimous on 2 counts. Bev forgot to report that. There's the bias, there's the trouble that Bev got into. She didn't report that the jury was unanimous on 2 counts. This whole trial, this whole retrial should be on 1 count. But we're doing the whole thing again. So are we going to go do the whole thing again? Are we going to do the whole dance again? Here we go. That was a fast sandwich. All right, folks, here we go. We got a half an hour. We're coming back. It's going to resume in 30 minutes. Okay? We're going to come back in 30 minutes. We don't need to watch this. I've said what I've had to say, but we're going to come back. We're going to go wild in the chat. I'm going to get Hank Kraft. I'm going to track down Alan Jackson when this is over. I'm going to get Karen. I want Nick Rocco. Nick, you're out there, baby. I love you. I want Nick. I want Krowski. I want Krowski because this guy I love Krowski. He's a good guy. We have a mutual friend. Guess who our mutual friend is? Chris O'Donnell of NCIS LA and a new show that he's doing. What is it? Nashville, 911 Nashville. Chris it was in college at Boston College with Joe Krowski. Krowski, I can't wait to talk to you. I respect your position, but I humbly disagree. And let's go to war and have fun on that. But this is the big, serious stuff here, buddy. All right, I got to go do voiceovers for extra. I'll see you in a bit. Steve, you going to keep it up? What are you doing?
I'm gonna end the stream.
All right.
We'll come back.
We'll be back.